DND number 4, Weeds Grow in Jesus' name. Let's do the front of book matter first. I have a keeping tabs, which tells sort of what everybody's up to that you've read about so far. So if you've read the first 3 books in the Dandelions Never Die in Jesus' Name series, you will be interested to know that in Weeds Grow, Eric Keno turned 48 in June. Shelley Adams is 43. Ricky Keno, how cute. Okay. Ricky Keno turned 30 in May. Brianna Adams turned 27 in August. Mark Adams is about to be 18, so he's only 17. Joey Adams turned 16 in August. Juneflower, or Jeffy Keno, was 7 in March. Justin Lee is now 45. Jason Lee is now 36. Angel Pritchard Lee is 34. Their daughter Kimmy Lee is 5. Toby Nash is about to be 33, and Caroline is about to be 31. Gracie Smith was 3 in March. And then Chaz Stewart is about to be 29, and Lisa Lewis turned 25 in May. Of course, that's Lisa Lewis, soon to be Stewart, since you just read book 3. John Apple's 29, Jody Apple is 27. A lot of these are the same ages of Finding Home. But number 3, Finding Home, began on Lisa's birthday, May 15th. And this book, number 4, Weeds Grow, begins late summer, early fall of the same year. So we're just a few months farther down the road. A quote from Dogen Zenji: "A flower falls even though we love it, and a weed grows even though we do not love it." And Matthew chapter 13, verses 24 through 30. Jesus presented another parable to them, saying, "The kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while his men were sleeping, his enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and left. And when the wheat sprouted and produced grain, then the weeds also became evident. And the slaves of the landowner came and said to him, 'Sir, did you not sow good seed in your field? How then does it have weeds?' And he said to them, 'An enemy has done this.' The slave said to him, 'Do you want us then to go and gather them up?' But he said, 'No. While you are gathering up the weeds, you may uproot the wheat with them. Allow both to grow together until the harvest. And at the time of the harvest, I will say to the reapers, first gather up the weeds and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn.'" And here's a note to the reader. Sometimes the weeds begin to grow because we forget to put on the full armor of God: the belt of truth, the breastplate of righteousness, the gospel of peace, the shield of faith, and the helmet of salvation, the sword of the Spirit / word and prayer. Ephesians 6:10 through 18. And in this story, we focus on the breastplate of righteousness. The breastplate was the piece of armor that gave protection to the vital organs, most importantly, the heart. And when a soldier wasn't quick enough to take up his shield against the unexpected advances of the enemy, the breastplate was there to protect. But what if the breastplate had cracks? Then the weeds, parentheses, the enemy, will find a way to get through. When we knowingly make a decision to be unrighteous, to turn our backs on the laws of God, we put cracks in the breastplate. The laws and commandments of God are not given to us to make life hard, any more than telling our children to not play in the street is to make things difficult. We tell our children that because we love them and we want to keep them safe. And God's laws are given to us for the same reason, though this is a simplistic illustration. When we know right from wrong and willfully choose wrong, then there will be a battle coming on, and there are consequences to every choice. Weeds Grow in Jesus' name touches on many evil things that people face in this earthly life. They are not unrealistic. Evil things such as revenge, sexual promiscuity, rape, torture, murder, and death. As horrible as these things sound, the Bible addresses all of them, and we find that we can and will overcome them all. This book also addresses honesty the importance of family, loyalty, prayer, courage, strength, faith, and love. The Bible, too, addresses these beautiful things and tells us how to obtain them all. If we must be likened to weeds in any way, then let us take on their good qualities. Let our love grow like a weed. Let our faith be strong against barren ground like a weed. And let our fruit multiply like a weed, for dandelions never die. Chapter 1. Take a look at that. Ricky Keno glanced at the scandal mag his friend tossed on the table as he joined him for lunch. On the front was a picture of one of Hollywood's favorite sweethearts. She wore a bikini with the man's tailored shirt pulled on over top of it. The open shirt revealed a slim, toned body and long, shapely legs. Her just below shoulder-length, shiny chestnut locks were swept up in a ponytail, and she was smiling at and holding hands with a large, muscle-bound guy in swim trunks. The man wore dark glasses and a baseball cap, and the headline pretty much summed it up. Brianna Adams and new bodyguard Nicholas James, more than a working relationship. Ricky sighed, folded the paper in half, and handed it to the waiter who came to take their order. "Toss that, please," he said softly. "Of course, sir," the waiter replied, tucking the offending paper under his arm. "Don't bring me trash like that," Ricky implored of his longtime friend once the waiter left. Steve Taylor shrugged. Steve Reynolds shrugged, not Taylor. Steve Reynolds shrugged. "Doesn't that bother you? Because I tell you, it sure bothers me." "Well, you got to stop reading that stuff. Those papers never print the truth. You didn't see the pictures, man. Bree and this guy, they're definitely together." "Geez, Steve, will you give me a break?" "Sorry, Rick. I guess it's my way of encouraging you to just go after her. It's not that easy, especially now that she's a big celebrity." "Big celebrity? And what are you?" Steve asked of the martial arts icon and heartthrob leading man. "Besides, you've been around a lot longer than her." "It doesn't matter who's been in the public eye longer. That's not what I'm talking about. Her celebrity status makes her vulnerable to gossip, and what she wouldn't like is that what they'll print if she and I were to get together. You know, the brother-sister thing." "Well, you're not her freaking brother." He sighed. "I know that very well," he said softly. Then louder, "But that's not how the world will see it. My father and her mother are married. They have a child together who is my sister and Bree's sister. Still, you and Bree are not related, not by blood. Besides, since when have you cared what the world thinks?" "Since never. But you see, it's not me that cares, it's her. And her career means everything to her, and I don't blame her for that. And she's worked darn hard to get where she is, and she's not about to put her career in jeopardy. Not for me, not for anyone." Steve nodded his head. "Well, then, maybe she should consider a relationship with you. It would be amazing publicity. I can see it now, the big scoop. Brianna Adams and Ricky Keno have been secret lovers for years." "Shut up, Steve." Steve eyed his friend. "It's true, isn't it? I've just hit the nail on the head." Ricky drew a deep breath. "No, it's not true. We got together and dated for a brief time the year our parents first met. That was a long time ago. About 8 years, actually." "Come on, man. Do you mean to tell me you haven't been in those pants one time?" Ricky's eyes flashed. "If you weren't my friend who I know says ridiculous things without thinking first, I'd kick your butt right now. Bree and I have barely seen each other more than a few hours at a time for the better part of 5 years. And she barely acknowledges me, and then it's only as her stepbrother. Oh, you weren't watching her last summer at the party at your father's house, and I was. She has the hots for you, Rick. She watched you every second you weren't looking at her. I'm telling you, you've got to go after her before it's too late." "I am not going to waste my life mooning over someone who doesn't give a flip about me. She's made that clear enough over the years. Look, Steve, at one time I really thought I was in love with the girl. We had our fun, and she called it quits first. Yeah, that hurt. But I'm over it. Got it?" Steve shook his head. "Like hell you're over it." He went on quickly, taking note of Ricky's fierce expression. "I'm your friend, Rick, so I'm going to tell it like it is. If you got to kick my butt for it, then so be it. You're still in love with Bree, and she has feelings for you too, and the two of you need to be honest with yourselves and give in to it. It's the only way you're ever going to be happy. I'm happy enough. Yeah. You got hot chicks hanging all over you, and whenever the mood strikes, you take your pick and bring one home to play around, but I know you're not happy. Ricky's eyes narrowed. This discussion is over. Okay. I've had my say and I got your back, but bro, I'll tell you, maybe it's the private investigator in me, but I don't like the looks of this Nicholas James guy, and I intend to do some digging. You do that, Mr. PI. Just please don't come to me with the details. New scene. Ms. Adams, 10 minutes. Bree sighed and pulled out of Nick's arms. I have to get ready. He yanked on her arm, bringing her flush against him. Not so fast. Grabbing her hair, he held her still and kissed her hard. Ow, Nick, you're too rough, she complained. He grinned. You know you like it. She sighed. And you messed up my hair. Trisha's not going to be happy. He shrugged. She'll fix it. I'll fix what? Trish said as she opened the trailer door and stepped inside. She gasped. Oh, look at that hair. What happened? Bree rolled her eyes toward Nick. Trish glared at him before she turned back to Bree. Sit, she directed. We have to hurry. Nick started toward the door but stopped to whisper in Trish's ear. Watch how you look at me. Trish's face drained of color. She glanced up to see if he was kidding, and it was hard to tell. He grinned at her and blew a kiss at Bree and left the trailer. Sorry about the hair, Trish, Bree said after he'd gone. Trish smiled at the actress in the mirror. It's not so bad. This won't take long at all. She worked on the thick brown hair, replacing pins, brain curls. When she glanced back at the mirror and caught Bree's sad expression, she couldn't hold her tongue. So, is this guy giving you a hard time? Bree looked up. Who, Nick? Who else? Bree sighed. No, of course not. He's a little rough around the edges, but that just comes with the territory, you know, ex-cop, etc. You really like him? Trish asked. Of course. What makes you ask? Trish shrugged. I guess she just seems sort of sad. Bree flashed her brilliant, winning smile. I'm not sad. Not at all. She kept the smile on her face while Trish finished her hair. She wasn't sad. However, she had been thinking about someone she shouldn't be thinking about. Her brother, Ricky Keno. Well, her stepbrother. She was thinking how he was so protective of her and how he would not be happy with the way Nick jerked her around sometimes. Her mind flashed back to when she and Ricky first met. Ricky's father, the legendary martial arts master Eric Keno, and Bree's mom had been madly in love. And they'd sent Ricky to the airport to pick her up, and she couldn't have been more thrilled. Here was this gorgeous martial arts movie star with his long black hair blowing back as he walked, carrying her luggage, opening her door. The chemistry was there, and they'd hit it off immediately. She smiled. They dated pretty steady for a while. She'd been only 18 and he was 21. He was so full of life and energy and not a bit shy, and they always had so much fun. He'd received a first-class education around the world, and he had a brilliant mind with so many insights to share and a quick wit that kept her constantly on her toes and constantly laughing. Icing on the cake, his body was smoking hot, and every time he'd accidentally brush against her, it sent chills racing over her. The first time he'd kissed her, they'd been in New York. He'd flown in especially to see her, and they'd gone for pizza and then back to her apartment. And in the kitchen, as she poured him a Perrier over ice, he lifted her chin with one finger, moved forward, and kissed her. It was slow and soft and warmed her to her toes. He was a big movie star, and she was a struggling actress, which admittedly made him all that more appealing. He was so very sexy, all 6 feet of rippling muscle. They'd taken their drinks and had a seat on the old worn sofa, spoken briefly about the latest Broadway show. He'd leaned over and kissed her again, and suddenly it had been like a frenzy. She'd wanted to give him everything. Then she mentioned something about being relieved that she would no longer be the only virgin left in New York City. He'd stopped. You could have heard a pin drop. He said something ridiculously honorable about not taking advantage of someone so innocent. And she tried to make him forget what she'd said and tried to show him that she wasn't quite so innocent. He'd almost wavered. She thought she'd won, but he'd forced himself to back off. He'd said it wouldn't be right or fair. She smiled now, sighed, thinking about the past. His resolve lasted. He was bound and determined to do the honorable thing. And she was definitely attracted to him, but at that time she was young and not ready to be in love. On the other hand, he said he was in love with her, but if she didn't love him, there was no way he could take her virginity. He also had an idea that people should be married before they were intimate. Then Ricky's dad and her mom were married and had a baby, and that was the end of that. All done, Trish said, bringing Bree out of her reminiscing. Bree smiled. Thanks, you're the best. Time to go to work. She rose and walked out to the set. New scene. The girl giggled. No one is going to believe me when I tell them that I spent the night in Ricky Kino's penthouse and in Ricky Kino's bed. He sighed. She rolled over on top of him. You want to do breakfast? He grimaced. Sorry, I really don't have time. Got to be downtown in an hour. Are you sure you really have to? He gently pulled her off him and rose from the bed. I'm sure. I really do have to go. Pulling on some jeans, he left the room. How about a protein smoothie? Ricky asked. The girl made a face. How about some coffee? I don't have any. Maybe some herbal tea? Another face. You're not normal, are you? Apparently not. I've heard that about you. Now you've confirmed it. He smiled at her because he knew his comment seemed brusque. Look, can I run out and grab some coffee for you? She grinned. Aw. And you're sweet, too. That's okay. I guess I'll get going. Besides, I can't wait to tell my friends about you. Lips pressed together, he nodded. Just do one thing for me. Tell me I can call you to prove to them, and you won't deny it. I don't ever lie. She sighed. I've heard that about you, too. Well, Ricky Kino, thanks for a great time. He bowed graciously. The pleasure was mine. She giggled, gathered her purse, and let herself out. Ricky slumped down into a chair. His usual sunny demeanor had deserted him. He was down, really down. There was no way he should have brought a girl back with him. What in the world was he doing? His father would be disappointed in him, but no more than Ricky was in himself. And he glanced heavenward. He also knew God was frowning down on him. The words his friend had spoken to him the other day played back in his mind. You're still in love with her, and she has feelings for you. You're never going to be happy unless you do something about it. Well, what the heck am I supposed to do about it? He asked aloud. All he knew is he couldn't live like this. He immediately dropped to his knees and asked forgiveness. He completely emptied his heart, and by the time he finished his prayer, he knew exactly what he needed to do. I need to go home and speak to my father, he thought. I need family. I need the ocean. I need home, and that's exactly where I'm going. New scene. Shelley had been watching the girl for some time now. It's amazing, she thought, that no one else had noticed the small, attractive young woman who was moving around the crowd, stealing them blind. The park was crowded, the day sunny and bright, as always in Southern California. The kids had just started back to school and were noticeably absent, but parents with toddlers and lovers and dog walkers and musicians and clowns and kite flyers abounded. Shelley sat on a green wooden park bench, people watching. She loved to guess their occupations or situations, like a woman in a cream-colored suit paired with athletic shoes probably worked in an office and was trying to get a little exercise during her lunch break. A man with a pencil and a small book was doing crossword puzzles. A woman in shorts and a t-shirt holding hands with a man in a business suit were having a steamy love affair in Shelley's imagination. Yet she couldn't quite peg the little scamp. The girl's age could have been anywhere between 16 and 25. She was pretty, with bright blue eyes, creamy, fair skin, and black hair that was chopped off short and spiky. Her body was athletic, lean, and wiry, thus the reason for not being quite able to guess her age. Why was this girl picking pockets, stealing watches, cameras, even a yo-yo? She wasn't really very good at it since Shelley had been able to follow her every move. The girl sat down on a bench next to an elderly woman just across the lawn from where Shelley watched. The woman's purse was the obvious next target, and just as the small hand reached down to grab, those bright blue eyes lifted, and Shelley's deep brown eyes, filled with understanding and a desire to help, met with icy blue, arrogant and hard. or was there a trace of fear? The girl hesitated, and in that instant the older woman realized what was happening. The commotion that followed was classic. The cry for help, the tugging back and forth for the purse. The girl won that battle and scrambled away with a couple of do-gooders in hot pursuit. She was quick, though, actually leaping a bench in full stride, skirting around a picnic pavilion, and disappearing around the bend in the crowd of people. Fascinated, Shelley wished she had a chance to speak with her and discover what motivated her. What's her story? And mostly, how could Shelley help her to straighten out her life? Shelley decided she would definitely keep an eye out for her the next time she was at the park. Gathering her things, she stood to leave, smiling with the anticipation of meeting her husband at the diner and telling him about the girl in the park. They'd celebrated their 8th anniversary a few months ago. She sighed with pleasure. 8 years, and the anticipation of seeing Eric still turned her to mush. Then again, so does everything he does. The way he pulls her chair out for her at the dinner table, or kisses her on the cheek in greeting, or wrestles her to the ground during an impromptu sparring match. They say all those feelings fade over the years. They certainly had for Shelley and her first husband, but so far so good for her and Eric. Maybe it was the confidence they had in each other. In a lot of relationships, as soon as they get together, one or both begin to worry about losing the other. It was Shelley's theory that this lack of confidence in one's own self and this lack of trust in the other is what brings about the beginning of the end. It's over, really, just as it's getting started. Shelley believed two things kept her marriage fresh and alive. First, she and Eric trusted each other, and second, they never became stagnant because they each believed in progressing as individuals. No one loses respect for the other, and no one loses self-esteem, leaving them free to simply revel in each other's love. Just as she turned to leave, two children approached, giggling and smiling. "Hi," Shelley said, returning their smile. "Hi," the boy answered shyly. Aren't you Shelley Keno?" "Yes, I am. And who are you?" she asked. "I'm Ethan. I saw you on TV." "You did?" "Yeah, lots of times. Do you really live with Ricky Keno?" She grinned. So he finally cut to the chase. "Well, sometimes, that is, when he comes home. He has his own place now and he travels a lot." "Wow. Why aren't you in school?" Shelley asked. "Well, we didn't get moved in time. We had to wait for somebody to finish working on our house, and they took their own sweet time." Shelley laughed. "Oh, really?" "Yeah, that's what my dad says. My mom says we got to go tomorrow anyway, even though we're not all the way unpacked. I'm 10, my sister's 8. We used to take taekwondo where we used to live, and there was a picture of you and Grandmaster Keno on the wall. Dad says he'll get us signed up here somewhere." "That's great." Shelley reached into her purse and pulled out a business card and wrote on the back, "Give this to your dad. It's one of the Keno studios not far from here. They'll give him a good deal." The boy nodded. "Yes, ma'am." "How long have you been taking?" Shelley asked. "I've been taking 2 years. I'm a blue belt. Donna is a green belt. She started later than I did." Shelley noticed the last statement made Donna frown. She smiled at the girl. "Well, we all have to start sometime. I didn't start till I was 34 years old." She turned back to the boy. "You better work hard. It wouldn't surprise me if Donna caught up to you." Shelley could see a new fire light up in the young girl's eyes. Good. A little competition for brother couldn't hurt. "Could we have your autograph?" Donna asked. Shelley looked around. "Is that your mom?" The children nodded. "Tell you what, why don't I get your address and I'll send you some autographed pictures? And how about I add some from Ricky, too?" The children were ecstatic, and Shelley went to meet their mother, chatted for a short while, promised the pics, and wound her way out of the park, shaking her head in wonder. It still amazed her that people thought of her as some kind of celebrity. She'd won the Mart 8 years ago. The martial arts recruiting tournament was Olympic-like in importance in the world of martial arts, and since her win, Shelley had endorsed cereals, developed her own line of workout clothing, had a doll in her own name, had some sporting equipment and shoes, and even did some commercials for shampoo, since her hair had become her trademark. She wore it differently from most women her age. When she'd begun training for the Mart at the age of 34, she'd worn the long, curly, golden brown tresses in a thick single braid. 8 years later, she hadn't changed a thing, even though she'd threatened to. Her eldest daughter was dead set against it, but Shelley swore the minute she went gray, she would cut it off, rather than look like the Wicked Witch of the West. Her daughter Brianna also had long, thick hair, but hers wasn't curly like Shelley's. Bree's was darker and just below shoulder length, was straight and sleek, and a deep glossy brown. The newest addition to their family, Jeffy, had the thick blackish hair of her father's ancestry and the curls of her mother. Her hair was waist length and usually worn in braids. Shelley smiled at the thought of her youngest child. How could she not? Jeffy was happiness personified. There was something about her that just made people smile. It had been a miracle that Shelley had conceived in the first place, and when they discovered that Shelley carried Eric's baby, they'd never been happier. At the time Shelley met Eric, she never dreamed that she would end up the wife of the renowned martial arts master, and she certainly hadn't considered that she would be stepmother to martial arts movie star Ricky Kino. Thinking of the children to whom she had just promised to send Rick's autographs, she understood completely. Her own boys had only been 6 and 8 when she'd first introduced Ricky into their lives. They had been euphoric with the idea that they would be a family together with a real-life movie star, and only slightly disappointed that the movie star was also mesmerized by their older sister. Yet when Ricky took on the responsibility of instructing the boys in their martial arts, it made up for any flaw. In no time, they had earned their black belts and were on their way to their own notoriety. Mark, Shelley's eldest son, was now about to be 18 and a senior in high school. A second-degree black belt, he'd put martial arts on the back burner when high school football grabbed his attention. He'd ended his junior year as an all-state, all-American quarterback and was being highly recruited at several Division I colleges. He also loved music and was a darn good percussionist, and they'd had to add a soundproof studio to their home. Younger brother Joey had taken off in another direction. He was about to be a third-degree black belt and followed the tournament circuit. He was good, really good. Of course, having Ricky Kino as his instructor and Grandmaster Eric Kino in his corner, you could be nothing but excellent. Ricky and Eric would not allow anything less. Shelley should know, since they were the reason she became Mark champion. They would disagree. They would say the fight came from her heart. The same went for Joey. Joey, however, had one flaw. He was only 16 and still looking for the maturity and control that came with his black belt. Shelley glanced at her watch as she walked. The diner where she was to meet Eric for a late lunch was only another block. After lunch, she would pick up Jeffy from school. Beautiful, sweet little Jeffy, Juneflower Kino, nicknamed Jeffy by her brothers. Shelley sighed. The expert called her Jeffy a genius. At 7 years of age, she was doing high school work with ease. She attended a special school for gifted children. And to Shelley, she was just a baby girl with the same wants and needs any child would have. Toys and clothes and fun and laughs and love. It bothered Shelley that her doctors and teachers were always wanting to analyze her and test her and see how far they could push her or see what new tricks Jeffy could do. Shelley and Eric kept a close eye on the situation, though, and if they felt things were getting out of hand, they would step in. That was why this was the third school she'd attended. Shelley looked up to see the fresh green and white sign of her and Eric's favorite diner, the Elements. Shh, it's okay, baby. There's nobody out there. Sorry. Shelley looked up to see the fresh green and white sign of her and Eric's favorite diner, the Elements. They served organically grown health foods. Sandwiches made from whole grains, free-range turkey and chicken, fruits and veggies, homemade soups, health shakes of every variety, yogurt, tofu, sprouts, spelt, whatever the current craze in health, they carried it. The moment she walked in, she was overtaken by the aromas. It was amazing to her that they could make such healthy foods taste and smell so scrumptious. She spotted Eric the same moment he spotted her. The smile that came over his face as he rose to greet her made her warm all over. Lord, was she ever used to being so loved? He rushed to her and escorted her to their table. Hi, Eric. How's your day so far? He brushed his lips over her cheek as he guided her to their usual corner booth. It's been hectic and stressful, and you are just what I needed. You smell good. He kissed her neck before he could pull himself away and sit opposite her. The regular Eric, John Paul called from behind the counter. Eric nodded, then turned back to his wife. She sat there smiling at him. She was like a breath of spring. Her skin glowed, her hair shone, her eyes sparkled with life and love. What was it about her that made her so incredibly appealing? He wanted to make love to her right now. He'd been married to her for 8 years, and he couldn't keep his hands off her. So, what have you done today that makes you look so gorgeous? He asked. Let's see, she said coyly. It could be the 4 mile run or the call from Bree. It probably isn't the way I got my butt kicked in a sparring match at the class I attended this morning. He frowned, which made her laugh. I can't win all the time, Master Kino. Yes, you can. Would it help to know that it was a man who was about 6 feet tall and outweighed me by more than 50 pounds? No. Oh, Eric, you can be so impossible. I guess that's why I love you so much. She reached for his hand, which he gave automatically. Let me tell you about this girl I saw in the park a little while ago. He rubbed his thumb over her wrist. Okay, tell me. As they ate lunch, Eric listened to his beautiful wife tell the story. He watched her face as she spoke. She was glowing like a child on Christmas morning. So, why does this little thief intrigue you so much? I don't know. There was just something about her. It was like, I don't know, like we were destined to meet. I know that sounds crazy, but oh my goodness. Her eyes went wide. Never one to overreact, Eric stayed still and calm. Tell me what you see. The girl, the one I was just telling you about. She just came into the diner. You're kidding. He started to turn. No, wait. Don't scare her away. He frowned. And you think my looking at her will do that? Shelley smiled at her husband. Well, you can be very intimidating. And don't tell me you don't know that. She glanced toward the girl. I want to meet her. I want to talk to her. Eric shook his head at his wife. No, you don't. Yes, I do, Eric. I really do, she whined. He sighed. Do you absolutely insist that you have to get involved with this girl who will probably be nothing but trouble? Shelley smiled sweetly and batted her eyes. I do. Now, how can I get her attention without scaring her away? You can't, he sighed and started to rise, but I can. She grabbed his arm. Wait, what are you going to do? Trust me, he said. If she really is how you described her, this should only take a minute. She did trust him with her life, and she watched him, wondering what he had in mind. He strode to the counter to pay his bill, laid his wallet on the counter, and made small talk with John Paul, the owner of the diner. Shelley's eyes grew wide as the girl slowly approached the bar and sat at the counter right next to where Eric stood. It happened in only a split second. Quick as a shot, the young girl's hand reached out and grabbed Eric's wallet. Even quicker, Eric's hand slammed down on top of hers, pinning her there. Their eyes met. Defiantly, she lifted her chin and tugged. He didn't budge. You're had, sweetheart, so you may as well stop trying to get away, Eric said. Oh, should I call the police? John Paul asked. The girl struggled again to free her hand, and Eric grabbed her by the wrist and raised her hand up to show her there was no way of getting free. I suppose that's up to her, Eric answered. He raised his eyebrows at her. Would you like him to call the police? Do I actually have a choice? Eric nodded. You actually do. The alternative is to have a conversation with my wife. Your wife? Eric motioned toward Shelley. Oh, man, she's the lady that was in the park. Correct. So what will it be, conversation or jail? She glared at her captor. His eyes were like stone, but the wife, yeah, that was the way to go. She nodded, and he pulled her toward the booth, shoved her in first, and sat beside her. Shelley smiled sweetly at the captive delinquent. The girl, however, did not reciprocate. So talk, the little imp ordered. Eric only shook his head at his wife. She'd become quite a philanthropist over the past year, saying she felt so blessed and she just wanted to give back. He realized this young girl was about to become one of Shelley's projects, a major one. What's your name? Shelley asked. Why is that important? Well, it's not, really. I mean, a name is not so important as the person inside, but I'd like to know your name so that I can call you something other than, hey, you. When the girl only sat sullenly, Shelley sighed. Okay. Well, anyway, I'm Shelley, and this is Eric. Ice blue eyes sliced up at the man. Are you hungry? Shelley asked. She was starving. She hadn't eaten all day, but she certainly wasn't going to let them know that, so she schooled her features. The Kinos caught the act, and Shelley glanced up at her stalwart husband, who motioned to John Paul. Will you bring us another sandwich, John? And some juice. You got it. So what's the deal? What do you want from me? The girl asked. Shelley smiled. I want to help you. You want to help me? Oh, yeah, right. Help me what? You want to go into business together? Come on now, Shelley cajoled sweetly. You must know you need help. A young girl as beautiful as you running around stealing from people? It's not normal, and it's not right. Well, we'll get to that part later. I think you're crying out for help, and I want to help you. The girl lowered her head as she thought, this woman is so nice, so honest. She exposes her heart so easily, not like Tommy described her at all. Still, as he'd said, people could be deceiving, and she glared up at her. Beth. What? Beth, that's my name. Shelley grinned. Well then, Beth, it's nice to meet you. John Paul set a plate down in front of her and smiled briefly and left them. Shelley made polite conversation as Beth ate. She spoke of the good food at the diner, what was good for a healthy body, and the weather, and Beth only listened, offering no comments. Eric smiled at his wife. She was an angel as far as he was concerned, but an angel who had a knack for getting into trouble. Shelley waited for Beth to finish eating before she probed any further. When it appeared she'd had her fill, Shelley began again. So, why do you do it, Beth? Do what? Why do you steal? Beth shrugged. Why does anybody steal? For the money. You could get a job, Eric suggested. Beth glared at him. Not as easily as you think. Besides, stealing is much more fun. Shelley sighed. Jail time is no fun. Beth had no ready answer for that, so she skirted the issue. Look, if what you're trying to do is teach me about your idea of morality, forget it. I have my own code I live by. We, Eric and I, would never force our ideas of morality on anyone. Yeah, right. Well, you'll just have to trust me in that. But tell me, Beth, why it wouldn't be easy for you to get a job. You're obviously smart, very strong, very pretty. What's holding you back? Beth sneered. Well, they sort of require you to prove your identity and have a place of residence. And if I had the money to have a place of residence, then I wouldn't need a job now, would I? Life is funny like that. Why don't you have any identification? Beth sulked at the question and met it with stony silence. Eric shook his head. She's obviously on the run, Shelley. Beth and Shelley's eyes met. There was something there in those blue eyes that pleaded, don't go there. Shelley pressed her lips together, then smiled. For whatever reason you find yourself in the situation you're in now, I want to help you. I want to help you get on your feet, get cleaned up, find a safer occupation, find a direction that is not so self-destructive. I won't pry into your personal life if you would rather I don't. I won't ask questions. Just let me help you. You need someone you can depend on, someone you can trust. So what are you suggesting, Beth spat? You want to take me home like some stray puppy? No. Yes. Both Eric and Shelley answered at the same time. Shelley turned her big brown eyes up to meet her husband's, and he closed his eyes in defense, but he knew he was fighting a losing battle, and he sighed. Yes, Shelley repeated. Come home with us. Meet our family. I only ask that you make an effort. An effort to do what? An effort to get along with those around you, an effort to improve yourself, follow my rules, and at least give my suggestions a chance. What could it hurt? I'm offering to put a roof over your head and food in your mouth, get you off the street and out of danger. Try it. If after you've given some time and effort to helping yourself, you still don't want my help, well then leave. No strings attached. How will you know that I won't steal from you? I mean, I wouldn't trust me if I were you. Shelley smiled. I don't know, but generally speaking, stray puppies don't bite the hand that feeds them. Beth made a face and sighed and gave in. Sure, I'll let you do your thing for a while. Maybe, but I'm not promising anything. Eric's eyes narrowed. Something was not right. She gave in just a bit too easily. Maybe because it was an offer too good to pass up, but his instincts told him this girl was not on the up and up. However, his instincts also told him that she was not dangerous. Shelley clapped her hands together. Wonderful. So, now you come with me. I have some errands to run. It'll be great. You'll see. Wait, Shelley, Eric said. He turned to Beth. Are you carrying? Carrying what? Her eyes opened wide. A weapon? Of course not. His eyes narrowed. You don't believe me? You can search me. Good, I will. Step out to the car. He walked the women to Shelley's BMW and searched Beth's backpack first and found no weapons, and separated out the wallets and credit cards to be sent back to the owners and tossed the pack into the trunk. Face the car, he ordered with a motion to Shelley. You do it, or I will. Sighing, Shelley searched Beth. Nothing, she finally said. He nodded. Be careful, Shelley. I'll see you soon. Shelley kissed her husband goodbye. Eric watched her leave. He was not pleased with her. Shelley usually had good instincts when it came to people, and he certainly did. He sensed trouble from this girl, yet nothing sinister. If she was a handful, so be it. As a rule, they didn't shy away from something difficult. Nevertheless, there was something not quite right. He would have to keep a close eye on the little rogue. He did trust Shelley's instincts, though, and that was the only reason he was allowing her to go through with her plan. Well, allowing wasn't quite the correct word, more like conceding. Still, he was sure Shelley could handle herself with Beth, at least physically. Emotionally, she would get herself all caught up in the girl's troubles until she was sure of a happy ending. Shelley always envisioned a happy ending in every situation. That was her way. And that is the end of chapter 1.